Okay, it's another week, time for another video. This time I wanted to talk about something that I think is one of the worst pieces of advice did I say that right? Worst pieces of advice that I ever hear given, and that's to keep working on something until you get good at it. And this isn't like it applies specifically to programming or to doing a YouTube channel. This is just a general life thing that I hear so many people preach, and I just think it's BS. And frankly, I think it's gonna hurt you in the long run. The example I could think of is when I used to play Overwatch, that video game that is terrible and toxic, and I'm glad I got away from. But when I used to play it, and with all the hours I put in, like I would play with this group sometimes, and they just seem to have that mentality that if the more you play, the better you're going to get. And like when they would play against enemy teams and they would be being beaten, they would look at the hours of the enemy team and they'd be like, "Oh, they have more hours than us. I guess we're just going to lose." Never mind all the time like they would beat a team who had more hours. But it annoyed me too cuz like overall that was a mentality of the players. Like if I'd come across a really good player and I'd message them and be like, "How did you get really good on Genji?" They'd just be like, "Oh, you put in more hours." And I don't know, maybe they just wanted to give a quick response because they don't really care. But what I always found is like I could spend, day after day, week after week playing my main and doing this, like just kind of doing the same thing over and over again, going into matches. But what really helped me progress was going online and watching videos from people who were better than me and who thought differently and could just look at the problem and whatever problem I was facing and give me a solution. So rather than grinding away at that problem over and over again, just getting a simple tip would do so much to change the whole way I was playing. And another thing would be sometimes you don't even have to look online. Sometimes you just stop and you're sort of like, what am I doing? And you just like in that game, a match would last like 10 minutes or so. And let's say you stop after a match and you sort of reflect on it and you're like, what was I actually doing there? Okay, and you think about, okay, I was doing this wrong. And then you go and you practice whatever you were doing wrong, like in like the shooting range or something. And like in that way, in that's very specific case, it's like if you're practicing your aim or something, um, to some extent, yeah, doing something over and over again, I think it can help you. It's like learning the guitar. It's building up mechanical skills. It's like a kid learning how to walk. Like there's merit to that, but I think it has to be really measured. I think a lot of people get way too carried away with just keep doing it. When I used to work at UPS too, like I was the best stacker there. Like I stacked the boxes in the trailers, and my stacks always looked really neat. And I like it was like a fulfilling thing for me, but also people would always be like, "Man, your stacks are nice," and I basically like my stacks looked just as bad as everyone else's until the one auditor came in and she gave me a method for how to stack boxes. And then I like fine tuned that and added my own OCD touches to it. But that's what like made my stack so good is just like taking that outside input and one, not just being cynical about it. Like I'm not going to listen to the man or in this case, the woman, whatever. Uh, but actually applying that advice instead of, like there were people who worked there 3 times as long as me and still stacked like crap. And granted, some of them just didn't care, but you could see it that when they tried, they still couldn't. They still couldn't do it right. And I think it's because they just kind of had that mentality that if you keep doing something over and over again, you're going to get better. I like I said, I think introspection's important, and you can get a lot done by that. And this is something I know some people are going to disagree with this, but I don't think you can find all the answers within yourself. I just, you know, especially if you're someone who's more limited, like just as a kid, if you weren't forced to think through problems, or, you know what, I just think in general, I think like humans are social animals, and we really, there's just, like sometimes having outside advice, like it's kind of hard to even define why it works so well, because it's, it's like a different perspective basically. It's like something I'm not even going to always think of why it works, but um it can just it can just cut out so many steps and so much BS, just basically getting a little bit of mentorship from someone else who can, I think part of it might be they can see your problem not the way you see it. They can see it from an outsider and they can look at it objectively. I mean, anytime you do that, there's a risk, and this is something I'm really concerned about, is of being exploited, of having someone who just wants to mess with you or is trying to use you. But that's like a whole other problem. Um, I think if you're just like if you're at the level one where you aren't even reaching out to anyone, or you don't even know how to do that, or you think you can solve everything on your own, I think maybe you've gotta like don't worry, like 3 steps ahead basically. And another thing, I've mentioned this before, but with my YouTube channel, I work on it with one other guy, and there's so many times I would just be grinding away at something over and over again, and like, oh, I've got to do this thing this way, and then I would talk to the guy I work with, and he'd be like, "Why are you doing that?" Like he'd just be like, "Just leave it how it is. It's fine." And I don't know, cut out so many steps, and that's kind of getting on another topic of just networking with people in general, but generally I just think you're going to waste so much time. you're I think the technical term is opportunity cost. Like there's a huge opportunity cost to just chugging away at the same problem over and over and over again, when the solution could be right there. And the longer you put off just sort of finding a solution, like the more you're going to feel like you wasted time for all the time you did just spend chugging away at that. I mean, another problem, just think of like playing guitar. It's like if you are doing something the wrong way over and over again, you could actually be like physically hurting yourself because you're using a bad method. So there might be something to that too, to apply in general, but I'm going to wrap it up here.